And welcome back tuning into today's video. We've got big changes coming up in the coming week. We're going to lose the warmth and the high temperatures that we've had over the first week or so of October, and we're going to replace it with a much colder sort of polar influence. You really will notice the difference by the time you get through to around Thursday. So I'm going to go through the charts in a moment, detailing what's going on. Some very interesting and quite unusual charts coming up actually for the time of year. Very, very blocked sort of scenarios. It's the same area of high pressure that we've got with us now, really, in essence. It just goes to show you that the way the temperature within these high pressure changes is the key thing. It's not necessarily the high pressure itself, it's the position and the temperatures within the high pressure. That's all important, because we're going to keep the same sort of high pressure that's giving us all this warm weather. At the moment, we're just going to move it into a slightly different position, and we're going to change the air mass within it. So very interesting charts. We'll run through them in a moment. Before I get on with that though, just to talk about the advertising green keyword ads on my pages at GazWebBiz.com. If you run your cursor over green keywords, they're going to display ads, and when you see the ad and interact with the ad, say by clicking through it, you are supporting GazWebBiz.com, and thanks very much for doing that. So let's start off with the Central England temperature, just to show you how warm it has been for October. Currently we're provisionally up to the 6th day of October at 15.1, which you can see just there. That is an anomaly of 2.9 degrees above the 61 to 90 average. So it's been a very, very warm start to October, about as warm as you can get. 4 degrees is about the peak of the anomaly that you tend to get in this country, away from high summer, when you can get higher anomalies than that. But certainly for this time of year, that is a very impressive anomaly for the first 6 days of October. But we're going to see a crash with that over the next week or two. I think it's going to be interesting to keep a check on that, because you really are going to see it starting to dip down later on this week. And the GFS temperature ensembles are giving the game away. The temperature ensembles are for the upper atmosphere, but they're useful for down on the surface. The red line is where we should be, of course, and we're well above the red line at the moment, as we have been for the last week. Probably the last week of September as well was very warm, so for 2 or 3 weeks now we've been well above this red line. But once we get through to around the 9th, 10th, 11th of October, we're crashing down. We're going well below the red line by the time we get through to around the 10th of October. We're going to be well below average, and then we're going to stay pretty cool then through the next week, at least up to around the 15th, 16th of October, before maybe things start picking up again around the 17th. And I think I explained in a video a while ago, but around the 17th, say around the 21st, 22nd, you often get a little bit of a warmer interlude coming up then. So we probably will see the temperatures recovering a bit just after the middle of the month. But certainly for the next week or so, we're going to be very much cooler. Precipitation spikes coming back impressively as well, associated with this dropping temperature. It will be turning much more unsettled, and that's going to be particularly in the south and southeast. We'll look at that in a moment. So this is the GFS temperature. This is the GFS synoptic chart for today. What am I talking about? It's not the temperature chart, it's the synoptic chart for today. High pressure still sitting just to the south of the country, bathing us in this warm southwesterly wind, with the origins of the air coming from the tropical Atlantic. This area of low pressure to the north and northwest Scotland is the start of the change, though. Eventually that's going to move south and east. So there we go, as we move through into Tuesday. The high pressure is repositioning itself, or starting to. It's beginning to retrogress, which means it's going from east to west, as opposed to the normal flow, which is west to east. It's starting to retrogress out into the Atlantic. The low pressure is beginning to develop to the north of Scotland. Look what happens as we go through to Wednesday. The high pressure is moving up towards Iceland, and we're starting to pull down this very cold and strong northerly wind. Or not very cold, but very much colder than what we've had in the last few weeks. So northerly winds coming down as that high pressure moves out into the Atlantic. There's a cold front in with that as well. Quite a weak cold front, I think. Probably produces no more than a band of showers, but it will be the driving force for this change, and then this northerly wind comes down behind it. Then that low pressure sinks down in towards the Low Countries and on the eastern side of the North Sea. The high pressure then is sitting to the northwest of Scotland. That low pressure is going to be a bit of a nuisance then as we go through to the end of the week and into next weekend. It could bring some really wet weather in towards the south and the east of the country. The upper air temperatures show this change nicely. We're bathed in that tropical sort of Atlantic air at the moment. We've got the 10 Celsius isotherm at 850 HPA right across the country. So yeah, it is warm, but we're going to find the change coming along over the next few days. So as we go through to Tuesday, the cooler air is beginning to head into the northwest of Scotland. Southern area is still just about in the warm air. You'll get one more warm day tomorrow, but as we move through to Wednesday, there it is. Look, the 0 Celsius isotherm then is sweeping down across the country. So within 24 hours, we're dropping the temperatures something like 10 degrees or more perhaps across England and Wales in particular, bringing the -5 isotherm in towards the north of Scotland. That could see showers beginning to turn wintry over the high ground of northern Scotland. Moving through into Thursday, well then we're properly within that cooler air mass. The temperatures over the next few days show that it's warm today. We're between around 13 and 20 degrees. 20 of course if you get the sunshine. There's not a great deal of it about. There's quite a lot of clouds, so probably peg back nearer to 17 or 18. But if you get sunshine, you're going to be up to 20, possibly 21 again. Temperatures do drop a little bit as we move through into Tuesday across north and west parts, but still just about hanging on to one more warm day across most parts of the country. But then that's it. As we go through to Wednesday, those temperatures are dropping big time. We're down into single figures, really, for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and down into Northern England. Temperatures just between around 6 and 10 degrees up there. Further south, we're still about where we should be. It's cooler, but we're still around 14, 15 or 16 on Wednesday. But then by Thursday, well, look at that, we're down just into 10 or 11 degrees at best for England and Wales, possibly 12 or 13 along the south coast, but really we're just struggling to get into double figures for most parts of the country. That really will be a big shock to the system. Now this area of low pressure, as I say, as we go through to the end of the week, is going to become a bit of a problem. There it is, sitting just to the east of the country on Thursday. As we move through into Friday, it's all rather slab, but there are weather fronts here. You can't really see them on this chart, but there's weather fronts coming in excuse me, from the east. And then as we go into next weekend, another little area of low pressure is forming again over the Low Countries, and that heads in over the weekend into southern and eastern parts of the country. So with the high pressure blocking up to the north, there's the blocking area of high pressure sitting from Iceland to Scandinavia. We've got the cool air underneath it, and this area of low pressure could be giving some quite heavy rain down in the southeast. That is looking really quite cold and wet. The precipitation charts for Thursday show that most of the rainfall is in the North Sea and going down into the Low Countries. But as we move through into Friday, that does head west in towards southern and southeastern parts of the country. Quite a wet day as we move through into Saturday for the Midlands, East Anglia, Southeast England, Lincolnshire. Some quite heavy rain mixed in there, driven on by a cold northeasterly wind, so dull, wet and cold potentially for much of England and Wales going through into next weekend. And the suggestion is still that there's rainfall there over the weekend across England and Wales. We're going to have to pin that down because it's quite an unusual sort of idea to bring low pressure in from the east. So we've got to really wait a few more days to get the detail on that, but if it's right, there is the suggestion that it could be quite a cold and wet weekend. What about the ECMWF? All those charts were from the GFS. The ECMWF, very similar with this. There's the northerly wind coming down across the country through Wednesday into Thursday. That's the change from Wednesday into Thursday, and then that low pressure is sitting to the southeast as we move through into Friday. The blocking area of high pressure to the north and the northwest. So Scotland, Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England will be mainly dry, but you probably have some cold nights with a risk of frost and also the chance of some fairly widespread and dense mist and fog. That'll be the main problem in the north over the weekend. But there's that low pressure sitting across southern and southeastern parts through into Saturday. Tightly packed ice bar, so it is windy. It's going to be cold wind and outbreaks of rain certainly possible. And that sort of scenario continues as we go through the weekend with the high pressure unusually for this time of year blocking to the north of Scotland. The low pressure is to the south of the country, and if anything that low pressure reforms as we go through Sunday into Monday. That could turn it really, really wet if that's right across England and Wales Sunday into Monday. And then finally going out to the 10-day period, just see how things are looking right at the extended range. This takes us to Thursday, 17th of October, and the idea is that the blocking area of high pressure is still dominating there to the north of Scotland. Basically, we're bringing in this easterly wind, so very little change. It's just that we lose the low pressure down towards the south of the country, so it probably turns drier through next week, but it stays on the cool side, that area of high pressure continuing to bring in easterly winds. That's the GFS, the ECMWF. Very similar. Look at all this blocking though. This is very unusual for the middle of October. Right at this period, you would be expecting the Atlantic to be really ramping up and getting westerly winds, gale force winds, and heavy bouts of rain sweeping in. We've not got that at all. We've got the complete opposite to it with this big blocking area of high pressure. Essentially the same area of high pressure that we've got now, but in a position that's giving us cool weather as opposed to the warm weather that we've got now. But very blocked conditions, really stretching from Iceland up towards Greenland. And notice across Scandinavia and western parts of Russia, we're bringing down this northerly wind. That's bringing really, really cold air into Scandinavia and western parts of Russia. Very, very cold air plunging down with that northerly wind, and it wouldn't take much actually to start to bring that into western parts of Europe actually with that position of the blocking area of high pressure. So that could turn it even colder as we go through to the end of the month. We could be looking at a cold end to October, a frosty end to October, and very unusual charts we're seeing at the moment. Quite what the effect of this will be as we go into the longer term, it's hard to say. But if we keep this sort of blocking going on into November, we really will then start to bring in some very cold air, I think. So we've got to see what happens with that block, whether it breaks down and we revert back to westerly, or whether this is the start of a decline into a colder period. Be interested to see how it develops. But anyway, things are changing this week. The weather's on the change. We're going to lose the warm air that we've had for the last couple of weeks. We're going to turn it much colder and potentially very wet in the southeast as we get through to the end of the week and next weekend. So very interesting developments. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.